Good evening, this is Pineleaf Needles, and welcome to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO, and here at LOTRO Players. And tonight we have with us Draculetta.
Hey, everybody.
Etheros.
Hoi hoi.
Oh. Raxwolf.
Hello, Lotro.
Andang.
Hey, everybody.
Mystery.
Hey there.
Sithrit.
Hello.
And our special guest for tonight, Comstrike.
Hello, everybody.
And hello and welcome back to the show, Comstrike.
Good to be back.
Yes. And I presume you're here to talk about LOTROCon 3?
Well, I thought it was Shochun's karaoke night, but we can talk about LOTROCon 3 as well. Yes, LOTROCon 3. It's the third edition of our real-life gathering of LOTRO players. It's held in one of 3 days, July 25th, 26th, and 27th. Folks don't have to come for all three. They can come for one, they can come for two, and if they like odd numbers for good luck reasons, they can come for all three at Cedar Point Amusement Park in Sandusky, Ohio.
Awesome. Right. And I would like to point out that it's LOTRO players with a lowercase p. Just pointing that out.
And I was just thinking, if this is karaoke night, should we be singing the whole show?
I was just thinking that Mist needs to be voted off the show. All in favor?
I'm not going against Mist.
I don't know. If she's willing to do an Ethel Merman, I could get into it.
All right.
So what is LOTROCon?
LOTROCon was something that just sort of grew out of, a group of us, within Landreval server in particular, who had long talked about what a lot of people had talked about, and that was just having some kind of central annual gathering of Lord of the Rings Online players. After X number of years, I finally decided, let's get a domain going. Let's try a little bit of organizing here and at least hang the shingle outside the front door just to see if we could get some folks interested in it. Some people might prefer Florida this time of the year. Other people might, prefer someplace in the middle of a big resort. But frankly, it's, an hour away from me and easy to drive to, so I figured I would stick with Cedar Point and Sandusky. But we put it out there, and we actually managed to gather in the very first year folks from as far away as Texas all the way up into Minnesota, and collectively we're even a bit more spread out the last couple of years going into this year. It's just, a casual gathering. It's just a chance to get off, the computer, gather with folks that have some common interests there, and frankly have some fun. It's just a nice real-world gathering, and that's what it has been and continued to grow into over the first 3 years now.
Okay. And where can they find Sandusky?
Sandusky, for those that are geographically challenged or go to public schools in America, can be found in the middle between the cities of Toledo and Cleveland along the coast of Lake Erie in the state of Ohio. That is in the United States for those who went to school in Michigan. And it is, Sandusky is just right on the shores there. It's locally called the North Coast. It's something of a resort area, water parks, large-scale resorts, and the crown gem of it all is Cedar Point, which has been around for 147 years now, something of a local icon.
It's definitely a very good amusement park. I rate it very highly.
It is.
So that means you've been there before?
I have.
Finally, she's just rating it because, she's never been there before. I was just looking at the pictures and saying, you know what? That is a good amusement park.
Yes.
It's a mix of history and excitement, and it's a little bit of everything rolled up into one. It has crystal white beach sands. It has old-fashioned hotel resorts that have been around for over 100 years. It has state-of-the-art resorts, water parks, your classic miniature golf, probably the world's best collection of roller coasters, each of which was a record breaker when it was built. You can go and do everything from parasailing to fishing charters to roller coasters to doing Broadway review shows to, frankly, a really cool laser light show and fireworks display at the end of almost every single night. And frankly, the thick-cut potato fries and churros aren't bad either.
So how much do you get paid to be their spokesperson?
I am just too gung. I have a son and a daughter, ages 8 and 10 respectively, and we have season passes, so we are pretty dyed-in-the-wool Cedar Point fans. But it's kind of an easy place to get hooked on. It gets in your blood. It's a happy place. It's a place you can just lose yourself into for a few days and not have to go all the way down to Florida or elsewhere to get to.
Awesome.
It's part of growing up in this area. I will say that. So when you've grown up in this region, Cedar Point is the thing that you do when you're a kid or a teenager or a college kid, or frankly just local when you have kids. And it's a good place. It caters to the adults and the kids alike equally.
And if you're into wooden roller coasters, they have the world's best wooden roller coaster there.
It's true.
Indeed.
The Mean Streak is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It is a backbreaker, I'll give you that. It is huge. It is right on the absolute tip of the peninsula, and you go up over 170 plus feet up into the air, literally hanging out over the water, you feel like. And if you like slightly more sedate wooden roller coasters, that's the 50th anniversary of the Blue Streak, which is actually at the front entrance of the park. But we do have a lot of events there too. So it's not just going to be the roller coasters, though. It wouldn't be a LOTRO gathering if there weren't some somewhat contrived sometimes events that we hook into to do as a group as well. So we have the Golf Thimble Classic, which is the miniature golf contest we do on Friday evening. It's something of a blood sport. When you get LOTRO people used to running around Middle Earth with swords and they're starting to run around with golf clubs, things can occasionally get a bit out of hand. But we even have a trophy on it. I've defended my title here for the last couple of seasons. I have a group from the kinship flock of Schmeagles who are promising to come out there, and I think they are going to engage in single combat to keep me from winning this year. But so we will be going to Famous Dave's as a group. There'll probably be about a dozen of us saying they're chewing on ribs, various meat products and whatnot, and celebrating the event right after that. The next day we're going to have a single combat skee ball tournament in a massive, 120-year-old building that's probably the greatest video arcade left on this earth. And then late in the day, we're going to gather in a place called the Trail Tavern that serves local craft beer and wines, and we're going to have a massive Lord of the Rings online and Tolkien trivia contest, which we are going to replicate in-game afterwards. And I don't know how many hours we're going to be at that, but it depends also how many beverages are served probably, but we're going to keep at that. And with any luck, Verizon wireless service providing, we're going to try to do a Google Hangout while we're at that. So that's something I'm still experimenting with as I get out there this summer, but hopefully that's going to work.
All right. And what's this Dinos After Dark?
They just started that, and my kids are rather fond of that. They have it's something of a lagoon in the middle of the park, and they have a bridge over to it, and they have life-size dinosaurs, animatronic dinosaurs over there. So nothing speaks Tolkien in Lord of the Rings Online more than I think roller coasters surrounding large animatronic dinosaurs myself.
All right. Thank you. Anything else you want to add before we go on?
Well, absolutely. If folks even have the slightest inkling or interest in it, if not even for this year, then for future years, definitely go to our website, which will always be there. It's LOTROCon.com, LOTROCON.com, and that will show you everything there is to know. It gives you all of the agendas. And if you happen to be out there any one of the 3 days, all of the Twitter, Google+, Facebook, and Twitter feeds will actually be basically updating where the groups are in the park at any given point in time, so folks can break away, do their own thing, or just join us in the middle of the event if they aren't able to RSVP.
And just to remind everyone, when is the event?
The event will be, again, July 25th, 26th, and 27th. That's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in a couple of weeks. And absolutely, we've got currently 22 RSVPs. And thanks to Google+, we've got about another 23 maybes that have not yet locked in. So it's going to be a nice gathering this year, a bit bigger than last year and bigger than the year before that. And we'll look forward to seeing anybody that can make it out there.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Now we'll go into the game news. And our first piece of game news is that Sapience gave a little tease during one of his dwarf runs that there will, of course, be 3 items of interest that the majority of the player population will like when they have the next producer's letter, which is expected on July 14th, which is when this episode is planned to be aired.
So there's a good chance that the news will probably be already up on the site, and if not, by the time you listen to it, it'll probably be up on the site. So be sure to go over to LOTRO Players and learn of the awesome news. But sadly, we don't know it yet because we're recording this in the past. So
that means we have to make predictions.
Except for Mystery and I, we're in the future.
So they could actually probably just listen to this right now and see if we're right or wrong, which is something that I don't think's ever happened before on the show. So that's kind of cool, I guess, for those people that are in that particular situation.
So we can predict and they can tell us whether we're right or wrong. That's pretty cool.
Yep. Ooh. I didn't know they were that far.
At the time they're listening, that's pretty impressive.
Because I thought it was only Sunday for them right now.
Yeah, that's true. We're not quite that far in the future yet.
But
we're closer.
Podcast releases on Mondays.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
All right.
Clearly, finally doesn't listen to the podcast. So.
Draculetta, what do you think? What is your prediction?
No clue, but it's not going to be that exciting news, I don't think.
You don't think it's going to...
I think they're just hyping it to get some hype going. I really do. Sorry to be that way, but...
Oh, boy. All right. Can we get an even more cynical answer from Nethoros?
I'm kind of...
The gauntlet has been thrown. Come on. Come on, man. Come on.
I'm not going to be able to hit my usual standard because I have hiccups again. So it's kind of affected me in a very serious manner.
It's hard to be serious when someone says they had the hiccups.
It is very serious, Pranav.
It's hard to be bitter and angry if you have some hiccups.
Exactly. You can't be serious when you have them. It's too comical. Anyway, I doubt it's going to be as good as they're making it out to be. I think he'll probably end up just being something like, okay, that's nice. Like, more male attachments. Hooray. That sort of level of thing to be excited about.
Well, okay.
Are you referring to just the prediction or the letter as a whole?
I think the letter itself will probably be pretty good because pretty much all the letters by Rowan have been.
Mm-hmm.
But I think these specific points he's saying, like majority of players will like, probably won't match up. Really, in my opinion.
The last few times that's been true, so yeah, I could see that.
Mm.
I do real quick want to read the actual statement by Sapiens for anyone that didn't actually read the article. He says, I can't say anything more about Bjornings. However, there is a producer's letter coming out with Update 14. There are 3 pieces of information in the producer's letter that players will find very interesting. And he went on to say that if people were wondering if Turbine listens to players, they won't be wondering much longer. He also said that the 3 pieces of information will make the majority of players happy. That is quite the promise by Sapiens.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So therefore there are things that they feel the majority of the players will like, and that seems to be related to some sort of feedback they have received from the players.
And at least one of them is related to Bjornings, and that's about all.
Whenever people on the stream were asking about Bjornings, he would say, I can't answer questions about Bjornings, but there's this producer's letter coming up. So that's definitely
But right around the corner, there's something very interesting you guys might like.
Have people been asking?
It's also related to player feedback of some kind, so it must be something related to Bjornings, at least one of them, that people have maybe complained about, or otherwise requested some sort of change to how they're doing it.
Why I think the other 2 might not be that important, but my main thing is it's either going to be the Bjorning level cap or the starter zone. I'm thinking it could be near that level because I don't see anything else Bjorning related that's had player feedback, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm just thinking with the level cap that I think they pretty much explicitly said that.
To be clear, I think when you guys are talking about level cap, you mean starting level for the...
Yeah, starting level.
Yeah.
I presume.
Okay.
Yeah, they said that if they were going to make it start from level 1, they would have had to push it back to next year. I don't remember when they said that exactly, but I'm pretty sure that was saying...
Exactly.
So that would mean they are going to push it back if they're going to do that.
Exactly. If enough people, like Seth was trying to say, if enough people are complaining, then maybe Turbine sees it in their eyes that it would be worthwhile of making it be pushed back and a 1 to 50. I find that very unlikely.
Yeah.
I see the starter zone much more likely a solution.
I thought that there was an answer given that implied that it is still scheduled for update 15.
Mm-hmm. I also saw a similar comment. I think in one of the live
but they could have just assigned a few more employees to it and said, hurry up. Or even more different, maybe have like a trial type thing for the early levels and then actually release it a little bit later when they're further along in development. But again, like I said,
I don't think they'll do it, because if they go and they push back and decide we're going to do it level 1 through 50 and look at all the resources we just threw to make that happen in a hurry, then anyone who wanted music updates, housing updates, kinship updates, and God knows how many other things are going to raise holy hell, especially for a class that's probably going to be played by a slower and smaller percentage of the people in the game than there are Raiders or PvP by Sapiens' own precious numbers. So, it's what it is. It'll probably be things like skins, cosmetics, and things that really don't actually mean too terribly much.
And in my opinion, you just nailed it on the head. All this is it's bait and switch to get everybody off of the faux pas they made with saying that Raiders only make up half your game, and they're getting a lot of negative press. So now
is it a faux pas though?
Now we're going to dangle a little carrot out, and so people are going to start talking good about LOTRO again.
I think it might be a faux pas to admit and say that just because of the ire.
Whether
it's true or not, it's probably...
The point is, I think I see with that is they've been saying that same thing pretty much constantly.
Right, but they hadn't been saying it like that.
I swear I've seen him say, maybe Sapiens, maybe someone else, I think I've seen him say something along those lines before.
Yeah, they've definitely said it before, but for whatever reason, the most recent time that they've reiterated it drew a lot of ire.
Maybe it's the current climate of not having any new raids.
I don't remember them ever saying a percentage before, but I think the question that you asked before about is it a faux pas is a good one, because I think that I know we're kind of making it sound like a negative thing that they're doing a bait and switch. I think they need some positive press right now. Mm-hmm. I think they need to give people something to look forward to, because there has been kind of a fallout here in the last month or so. I think it's a good move.
I think part of that is because it's been 8 months since we've had a sizable piece of new content. It's been since Helm's Deep has come out. Because, update 13 was great. It added in a lot of other stuff for, early levels, revamping, doing all sorts of stuff. But the actual content for in players was next to nothing. It was just, the epic story and the end game that I don't think that much of a percentage of players look forward to say the least, let alone actually go through it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the main issue. I think that's why a lot of people are concerned about raids and things like that, because we haven't seen content in 8 months. That's a long time. Sure, there's been the revamps and all that sort of stuff, but actual content for people who are at the end of the game that are part of that raiding community haven't even had normal quests to do for 8 months now. And I think that is why that there's so much ire in the community, because we haven't seen any content, even though that content is promised right around the corner. Right now, they don't have anything, and I think that is part of the reason why it's been such a backlash. Plus, they're actually fighting for their part of the game that it seems like that they might be losing. Whereas, the PvP community and some of the other communities are so jaded because they've been fighting for so long that they aren't anymore. But it seems like that the Raiders are really trying to hold on to it. So,
all right, let's get back onto our Brax. Did you have a prediction?
Yeah, kind of. What I did was I wanted to try and be a little analytical about it, so I took somebody else's idea. What I did was, I don't know if you guys saw the thread with this post, but Kaylee Starshine actually went back and looked at a feedback thread on the official LOTRO forums and tabulated all the things that people had asked for on that feedback post. And she came up with these numbers. The top 4 were traditional in-game content, legendary item update revamps, housing update revamps, and PvMP improvements. Out of those 4, I don't think they're going to do any more traditional in-game content, as they've made very clear. I don't think they're going to jump back on the housing update revamp after all the trouble they've had announcing that recently. I do think they've talked about doing legendary item updates, though, so I think that's a very real possibility. They might be doing something with that system.
Yeah, the one thing about that is I don't think they're going to start doing anything else on the legendary item system until they find out how well the Essence system is received.
Yeah,
because until they have feedback on that, they can't make a decision on what to do with weapons.
You might be onto something with that, though, because I think I remember them saying that the second level cap increase for what was planned for next update with Pelagear, they might push back if players respond in such a way that they don't want it, which would actually tie in well to an LI revamp, since it would mean they don't have to put that in at the same time as a level cap increase.
Then again,
if they did, it would be one of the most enlightened things they did if they didn't roll Essence out so far that they couldn't quickly roll it back, because they made that mistake with Radiance Gear, and it took them years before they finally gave in and pulled that out.
It seems like they're much more cautious about Essence systems, the way they've been talking about it on the streams and stuff.
The current implementation that was on beta, you can't really tell what the system is because it's not implemented very far into it. And they talk about how there's going to be like a lot more things added, but right now it just seems like
it's hardly there.
It seems like almost a nuisance because there's so little of the system there that it seems like more of a hassle than what it's worth.
I think the number one thing they've kind of tried to be clear with this is that it's not LIs. That is like they constantly say that whenever people bring it up, or whenever they bring it up, it's not grindy like LIs, and that's the thing they've.
That's the thing. Across. It's hilarious. They're like, we promise it's not grindy and it's more fun than LIs.
Yeah,
I suppose it's at least a progress that they're admitting LIs are having problems right now.
Yeah, but I wonder how much money LIs are making them in the current system. With probably all those buffs and boosts and things they have those sales pretty often. I'm wondering if they sell really well during those.
They could, if they revamp the LI system, I'm sure they could find a way to like monetize it and make it profitable without making it the complicated mess that it is right now.
Yes, but I'm wondering if they're willing to risk it 7 years into development.
Well, I mean, for the longest time, after they did their initial LI update after free-to-play launched, pretty much from that point onward, the only statement they would give regards to LIs is that they think there were no problems with it that they needed to address. And that was like for years they had that same stance.
Yep.
It was only until I think maybe when Rowan came back that they kind of changed their stance to, there are some changes we would like to make and we're discussing them. It was very like kind of snapping that they suddenly decided that there were problems that they needed to address.
Yeah, because even in the class changes, they were like, oh, we'll have to change some things with the LI system, but only because classes, traits and stuff are getting switched around, not because there's a problem with it or anything. But now, since Rowan's been about.
And another thing to point out here is that they never said it was going to be something that was implemented with the new update. They might just be announcing something for the future.
Yes,
that's true.
That's
quite
true.
And
this could be something that doesn't even come out until, because they've mentioned stuff for 2015 already, so this could be promises even after that. If they're promising like raids or something like that, I mean, it could be something that doesn't even come out till 2016 or even later.
I doubt there will be anything in there that will be that significant there after 2015.
But
you never know. It's hard to gauge what is happening.
Well, but making promises past 2015 right now, I think, will be
the thing is with Rowan going so far ahead into the future.
With regards to that tally that Brax mentioned by Callie Starshine, they were actually discussing this with Andang earlier today about whether, when Sapiens mentions something, these will be things that the majority of players will like, whether he meant the forum majority, in which case those statistics are actually quite enlightening, I suppose, in terms of what it could be, or whether he meant the majority of players as a whole.
Yeah.
I think it's what he believed was the majority of the players. I do not think he meant the forum.
Which in itself is kind of hard to gauge, because I don't know how you could possibly get an accurate estimation from all corners of the game.
Yeah, and the word we kept coming back to was that this is what Sapiens thinks most players will like, being the key word.
But the problem here is that their main source of feedback is the forums.
Yeah.
Which, as we know, is very much not accurate.
Well, how else do they get feedback?
Well, they have. I know they said that to get the numbers for like how many people rate and all that stuff. Like they rely on their how much time count spent.
I think that's
in certain
kind of
areas.
the big difference of they have a lot of different statistics for what players do, but not nearly as much for what players say or what they want.
Exactly,
and
especially for the Beorning figure, they have literally no statistics in game that could tell them about what players would like.
The only thing I could imagine, like the only piece that we don't really, besides what other metrics they're using, but another piece that we don't really know is what they've been talking to the player council about. For all we know, they've been talking to the player council, and the whole player council for this year is like, this is dumb, do not start Beornings at level 50.
Yeah.
Or something.
I could see that. That's a good point. I forgot about that.
But they also turn around and try to tell us in the forums that the Players' Council is not intended as a representative group. So it's who they think is of value to give them feedback, not who actually knows what the hell anybody cares about.
All right. Andang, do you have any predictions on this?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and lock in. I think it'll be I think the Beorning related thing will be the Beorning starter zone. I can't see anything else that has had player feedback unless it's something that like the player council thought of that. Because the thing is, we know so little about Beornings that I can't think of anything else that we could be giving feedback that players would like. So that's my vote. It's either that or the level increase, but I think that would take a lot more work. So.
Missed.
You rang?
Not. Oh, there we go.
Did you have any predictions?
Honestly, no. There's a lot it could be, and a lot that it probably won't be. I do think, I'd have to agree, maybe the LI system. But then there's other stuff as well, so hard to know exactly.
Yeah, and I think it makes it harder, the fact that it's 3 things.
Or at least 3, I believe you said.
Mm-hmm.
In the second response, that it would be at least 3 things.
See, I know what it won't be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier to answer what it won't be than what it will be. So.
Well, yeah, I guess you got a point there. Citra, then, do you have any predictions?
The optimistic side of me says that it'll be something like, Beornings will start from level 1 or get a starter zone, or they're going to totally revamp the LI system. But the cynical side of me is saying that it's going to be like, guys, guess what? Beornings turn into bears. Or something.
It's not going to be that.
Well, honestly, the thing is that's really jading this type of a statement is the fact that Sapiens said that most VIPs were asking for the mail system of like the thing being able to click and access your mail from anywhere. I don't think that that's the most requested VIP thing, and if it is, then it sure shouldn't have been marketed like Sapiens was doing it, in my opinion.
Well,
because it caused people to go crazy and think of like all these different things that VIPs would be getting, and then it turned out to just be the mail system. And I agree, Pineleaf. At least I assume I agree with where you were going. Is I don't think that it'll be something like that, but because of that type of a statement, it definitely leaves me jaded as to what this might actually be.
Well, first of all, he said what the majority of the players would like, so therefore it's not something related to VIPs. But
the thing is, nobody really knows.
Next few zones for free, though. I think that was one thing. was the main thing they were talking about the VIPs getting more in the next few updates.
Right, but he made another statement where there's a new thing that we're going to announce that's a new system for VIPs that is the most requested thing that VIPs have been wanting.
Okay.
And then that's what it was. And so if most players, now he's saying, most players want, so I'm wondering what most players want in Sapiens' opinion. So it'll be interesting to find out.
Comstrike, do you have a prediction?
Well, I think it'll be Germany over. Oh, no, I'm not wrong.
Well,
I honestly think that Sapiens is a good guy, but he is caught in a position where, he can say the majority of the players mean this, but what is the majority? Oh, well, we don't talk about subscriber numbers. We don't talk about this. We don't talk about that. So it's whatever they decide the number means or whatever the group is, and ultimately it's totally irrelevant. I take the standpoint with this game that I'm just taking it for what it's worth and what it is, and whatever it becomes is whatever it becomes. It's at a point where it's almost irrelevant this long into the run what happens. Either you like the game or you don't. Enjoy it for what it's worth and don't stress out over what doesn't become from here on out.
That's a good point.
Yep.
All right, and I'm sort of pretty much stumped myself because I can't really think of anything that would be fitting, because usually when someone says something, makes a prediction on there, I'm thinking, it can't be that because of this reason. But of course, I said the same thing back when they were saying there's a new class coming in. I said, nah,
I
can't be the
didn't
Bjornings.
think it would be Bjornings at all, and then it was Bjornings.
Yeah.
But Pine Leaf, if the majority of players were Pine Leafs, then wouldn't the thing that they most want is a new skirmish?
Well, yes, but Sapiens said, I think in the same feed or the one just before that he is not aware of any new skirmishes coming down the pike, which means that if there is one, Sapiens did not know about it at the time he said that.
And can we take a quick side note? It really surprises me that Turbine isn't more focused on skirmishes, because I see a lot of players that are interested in doing skirmishes and do them quite a bit, especially on Imladris and some other of the servers that I've been on, where there's just like constantly an OOC and different things, people wanting to do skirmish raids and things like that. And, they make $4, assuming you don't buy them bundled, they make, almost $4 in Turbine points for each and every skirmish they sell. And I think for the development cost, that probably has a pretty good trade-off. So I don't know why they haven't been focused on more skirmishes, even in like older areas or something like that, because I think it'd be a great way to help them sustain their income a little bit more.
Well, and I think the thing that's really the great thing about skirmishes is that you can do a skirmish with any number of people pretty much. So, like, a skirmish is good for a solo player or a raid-sized group of people. So, basically, any kind of player can partake in a skirmish.
The major pro of skirmish being how flexible it is. Of course, the downside of them is the same. Flexibility also means that they can't be too complex or have too many different parts to them. Otherwise, it's going to be really awkward to make it that flexible. Which is kind of a big downside I've found with skirmishes, is that they tend to be pretty samey.
Yeah, and some people complain, for example, about the end of Battle in the Tower because there's a strong story element at the end of that particular skirmish. But after you've done that skirmish about 20 times, they're saying, all right, get on with your speech.
Yeah.
Now, of course, as you can see, some people are coming up with some rather strange responses. Fredolas, for example, he left a comment giving his predictions for the three, and as you can see, it's not exactly what I call unlikely ones. Like, there will be a new lair raid similar to the Turtle, available for 1,495 TP.
Well,
watch that be what it is, though, Pine Leaf.
It's a heck of a lot
actually,
more
that's
likely
probably the most
than,
reasonable of the three that he gave.
Yeah, it's a heck of a lot more likely than a full-on instance cluster.
Oh yes, I would
or
say
even
that.
Beorning's 1 to 50. Honestly, I mean that'd take a lot of work.
Yes, but a small raid like the Turtle is something that is actually possible, because they're saying Because it's certainly not a multi-boss raid or anything like that, or an instance cluster.
Or even like if they're going to make like a couple of 3-mans or a 6-man and a 3-man, something like that would probably be fairly reasonable, I suppose. At least compared to like making a raid, which obviously is a lot more complicated.
Well, yes. Well, and in fact, Sapiens himself said that a raid is many times more complicated than a 3-player instance. And in fact, I believe that the Epic has 1 or 2 that could be run as 3s or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's some sort of setup like that, yeah.
Right. Okay. His second was, this raid will only be playable by Bjornings to highlight the multiple combat roles, avoid complicated class balance issues, and simplify loot tables. I don't think the majority of the players would be thrilled about hearing that, so I strongly doubt that one.
Some raids better than no raids, finally. Gotta
But
take
his price
this low.
and its price for Bjornings, $14.95.
I could see
well,
that.
that's a question we'll be going for later, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they could announce the price of Bjornings. What if they said, like, I mean, that could be something Bjorning related, is they give, like, some really good price to Bjornings. Or say, like, it's free for VIPs to Bjornings, or something like that.
And concerning races being free for VIPs or something like this, I know in DDO, most of the races that have to be paid for, I think there are 2 premium races. One of them is free to VIPs and the other one isn't. So it is theoretically possible at least. And 3, and this of course is really tongue-in-cheek, non-Bjornies can be able to transform into bears at a cost of 25 mithril coins for 2 hours. It's obviously poking fun at the methods they do for allowing non-VIP people to go into the moors.
Did you say mithril points?
Yeah.
Mithril coins, yes.
25?
Yeah.
It would be more like 250 mithril points.
For 2 hours for 2 hours the bear?
Yep.
I don't think so.
It wouldn't be 25, I know that.
Why? 25 mithril points is the equivalent of 250 turbine points.
But
yeah, it's a
piece of an
100
outfit is
mithril
25
points to get 15 chest spots. So, yeah, they'll make their money.
It's like 50 mithril coins to buy a whole mannequin outfit. So.
Yes, but I think that 250 mithril coins would cost more than the cost of the class in the first place.
Can I just point out that we're actually arguing about the cost of mithril coins in Fredalus's mythical thing that'll probably never happen?
Anyway, Etheros, what was your response to Fredulus on that?
Well, I did not add this to the show notes, so I think whoever did should read it.
I'm nowhere near it, Atharos.
There's a scroll button.
Here we go. Elves could never turn into bears. They're incapable of growing enough hair.
I'm surprised you didn't try to do an Atharos voice for that.
Oh, well.
You know.
All right. Anyone have anything else they want to add to this discussion before we go on?
I'd rather not.
All right. Then let's continue. On Monday, July 14th, probably around the time that this goes up, there will be a turbine-wide maintenance. That means all turbine games will be down for maintenance. At the same time, they will also be performing the update for Update 14.
Which is very odd.
LOTRO. LOTRO, as far as I know, is the only one that's going through a game update during that time.
Do they normally have downtime for DDO when a big LOTRO update comes?
No, that's why. But they did announce. That's why they're calling it a maintenance plus an update on the LOTRO side, because it is also a maintenance for everybody else.
I've never heard of them having maintenance and an update.
That sounds kind of risky.
Yeah,
I know it sounds kind of risky. Yes, I do agree with that, because that is a rather risky move because if something goes wrong with one, because either one can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, but
so
they're giving you all time to catch up on your housework. So once all the updates and that are done, you can spend the
Although-
next 16 days doing them.
I suppose it could be more time efficient in the sense that if they're bringing down the LOTRO servers anyway for maintenance, they might as well just put up the update at the same time.
I think it
Yeah.
seems weird just because they've been doing so much maintenance lately already.
Yeah. But normally,
So to have even more.
Normally, at least this is a CSTM theory, is that they actually like preload a lot of things, and that's why when you do an update, a lot of it's already like preloaded in the client. And so then you only have to download the part that's actually added in that particular update. And then you have to install all of it, usually. So that's just kind of the theory.
But the big news here, though, is that Update 14 is going up, which is Paths of the Dead, which will add the Paths of the Dead, Western Gondor, the Essence system, and Swan Pets.
Swan Pets.
That's worth a bullet point.
It is.
I think it's kind of interesting how the update's called Paths of the Dead. I'd just like to point that out when Paths of the Dead is such a small area. It does have the group content, but it's a pretty small area.
You don't even spend much time in there.
Well, there's the group thing that they're going to have as well.
Yeah, I
when
haven't done
was
the epic,
going
so
through the quest, they really get you out of there pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm just
Unless they
wondering
send
if
you
at
back
the
in
end,
later.
because it's been kind of confusing on their message. Sometimes it sounds like that, like the end game involves you going back to Paths of the Dead, and sometimes it sounds like that's not at all what the case is. So, just kind of confusing.
The end game is kind of one of the areas for the end game is in the Paths of the Dead, and then there are other ones in different parts of the zone.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting, I guess, to see how much of the story is based on Paths of the Dead, I guess, because that could influence the title.
Yeah.
I presume. Probably because going through the Paths of the Dead is a very important part of the story in here so that we can get to the other side.
It's just reminding you that the Fellowship already went through here, and that's really the thing that matters is the Fellowship. But you're not going to see them at all because of how LOTRO works, which is actually better in my opinion. But it's just, yeah.
All right. Therefore, anything else that someone's looking forward to in this update?
Cosmetics.
Dol Amroth?
Dol Amroth, yes.
My line. Oh, Cloud Cuckoo Land. Yes. I love that new design.
We'll go to the store sales now. Draculetta, what's on sale this week?
Free sample of the week is Max Morale and Power Scroll times 1. Use the coupon code BOTH5, BOTH5. And like always, you get one of those scrolls per account, so choose wisely. 25% off sale this week is Monster Classes, Monster Traits, Monster Skills, and the 100% Infamy / Renown gain.
So it's a crafting sale.
Hey, it's better than an LI sale. That's all I have to say.
Of course, anything is, aside from those Hobbit present.
Even those are better at this point. LI's sales are getting old.
Also, for a limited time in the store, the Heligrod cosmetic outfits are back July 11th through the 17th only. And this weekend, but by the time you hear this, you missed it. It was Loot Box weekend. Increased drop rates on Loot Box all throughout, and that was until the 13th.
I'll just chime in real quick to say I would not waste your points buying Heligrod cosmetic outfits in the LOTRO store. You can get them from the Skirmish Classic vendor. You can get cosmetic versions of all the Heligrod. Or maybe they moved it to the cosmetic vendor. Check Classics or the
I'm pretty sure it's
cosmetic
in the Classics.
One. Yeah, check that one. If not, the cosmetics. There's the ceremonial cosmetic versions of all the Heligrod sets. So don't waste your turbine points. Waste your skirmish marks instead.
Yes,
and also, Turbine did tell about all their events that are kind of like this, where like Bilbo's birthday and stuff like that. They laid out the whole roadmap for that in the forums, if you guys want to check that out.
Oh, I do have one more thing. I forgot to mention that I am excited about for Update 14. That's actually not a thing that we've talked about, so it's kind of maybe not important, but for cosmetic people it is. They are changing the Erebor class sets to be dyeable, which is a big deal because we've been wanting that since they've come out. They've been weird orange colors since they came out, though, but now they're dyeable. Yay!
Awesome.
All right. Yes. Now, concerning the Heligrod cosmetic set, that would have been nice if we dressed into that for the latest episode of LOTRO Players Adventures.
Pineleaf,
Gotta look good
what
while
makes
you're
you
dead,
think? Pineleaf, what makes you think if we can't even organize our group that we'd actually be able to organize our cosmetics? I mean, come on.
I
You got Sithrit in the group.
We organised our cosmetics on Silverlight. We're now all running around in boxes and cake topper hats.
But Pineleaf, not even Sithrith can help this group. I mean, it is.
Challenge accepted.
Oh, okay. I'll take free outfits or paid outfits, either way.
Let us head into the LOTRO Players News, and we will begin with Andang, who has a Riders of Rohan giveaway.
You act surprised, Pineleaf. We talked about this last week, and I wasn't even here, and I know that we talked about this last week. Yes, Pineleaf, we have a Riders of Rohan giveaway that closes July 18th. If you're listening to this on the 19th, or even late in the day on the 18th, I'm terribly sorry, but you're too late. But if you're listening to it before then, and you haven't entered the giveaway yet, hurry over to the article, or on my YouTube channel, there's the video, because the article will just take you there anyway, and leave a comment on the video for a chance to win your copy of the Riders of Rohan expansion.
All right, very well. And, of course, we had our usual episode of LOTRO Players Adventures, episode 22, Crossbow of Justice. Now, where did that title come from?
Because you have a crossbow of justice.
You used to dispense justice to the heathens.
Universe.
To the universe.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Listen to the show, Pineleaf. You act surprised about the title each week, too. You were on the show. Listen back to it, Pineleaf. Come on.
Well, I was on the show, but that doesn't necessarily mean I remember where you drew the title from. All right, very well. Then let's go to the Brax clan returning with episode 10. Brax?
Yeah, the death of the Brax clan has been greatly exaggerated. The truth of the matter is we just don't get a chance to record very often, but it does still come out, and it's slow and inconsistent. But this particular episode sees Loco Wolf and I going through the Lone Lands, talking about LOTRO and Minecraft and Battlefront 2 and some of the things that Loco Wolf's interested in, and generally just having a fun time killing spiders there in the Lone Lands and using their eyes to play marbles.
Yeah.
Using spider eyes to play marbles.
That's pretty much it. It's like a mini game.
Okie dokie.
At least using all of the animal.
That's right.
So just a reminder, watch the show so you can learn about how to make spider eyes into marbles.
Okay.
And silence.
That's not true. He's lying. But go ahead and watch it anyway.
It's a great show.
I wouldn't want to put those marbles on my desk. They'd watch me while I sleep.
You sleep near your desk?
Well, I have a desk upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Oh, very well. Video highlights. What are the video highlights of this year, Andang? Of this week,
This year? Wow, that is a totally different conversation. But the video highlight of the week, much less intimidating, is the Rise of Isengard E3 trailer, which actually features this is the CG Saruman trailer where he's like, knowledge, power, that sort of thing. And it's really good, so I recommend everybody checks it out because I can't even imagine the amount of money they probably spent on this trailer. So I definitely think it's worth another watch, especially if you've never seen it before, because I think it's actually one of their better trailers.
I mean, it's not Christopher Lee, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, Sithrith, what's the outfit of the week?
This week's outfit is called Elf Ambassador, and it's based on the Elf Ambassador title that you get from completing Kindred Reputation with the Elves of Rivendell, the Malathreme, and the Galathreme. It uses some like grays and blues and whites to make kind of a elfy looking dress outfit thing. The dress is from the Malathreme Reputation. The cloak is a Lothlorien cloak. The shoulders are actually a quest reward from another Lothlorien elf. And Rivendell elves wear blue sometimes, I guess. So there's that. So yeah, that's how Rivendell gets tied in.
Some blue in your stuff, right?
Yeah, there may or may not be some steel blue dye in the outfit.
The poll for this week was, how much would you pay for the new Bjorning class? And what was the final? Let's see what the poll results were.
Well, finally, full yours loads. I can tell you.
Yes, that would be a good idea because
the top answer was 500 TP with 27% of the vote, or 27% and 67 votes. There were 246 voters in this poll, by the way. 500 TP is the winning amount for the most that you would be willing to pay for a new Bjorning class. That's kind of surprising.
It's going to be more than that.
Yeah,
I think if they're going to charge for it, which I would be shocked if they didn't, because of the amount of development time that they have to spend on it, it's got to be more than that. And so, but it's interesting that the majority of our readers, which I like to think are probably more into LOTRO than even the casual players are, the most they're willing to pay for it is 500 turbine points. That's kind of surprising. But really close to it at 25% is 1,000 turbine points. So those two are kind of neck and neck. And then the none, I don't want to play a Bjorning, is right between them at 25% as well, with one more vote than 1,000 TP. So I don't know. How much do you guys think you would pay for the new Bjorning Sun? What's the most you would pay? Athelros.
I would I wouldn't go above 2,000. And even if I was going to go for that much, I would have to know a lot more about it than I do now.
Yeah, definitely. Finally.
2,000.
2,000. Sithrith.
I voted 1,000.
Okay. Drac.
1,000.
Mist.
She doesn't want to play.
No, I'm on mute. So, the most I'd pay really is $750.
Okay.
Oddly
Not
specific.
An option in the poll, but good to know. $1.
Well, I'm sorry, but I didn't see the poll.
It's in the show notes, Mist. Come on.
I think probably about 1,500. I would hope for 1,000, but I would pay up to 1,500 probably at the most.
So I was very optimistic in that I was thinking that the Bjorning is exactly what I want it to be, which is very optimistic. But I answered 3,000 TP. I don't know. I was one of those 5 people that answered 3,000 TP.
Yeah.
It's the very bottom amount.
Yeah,
but,
it's going to be at least 1,000.
What's interesting is that the numbers were actually in order. So they started out at 500 TP and went all the way up to 3,000 in order of vote count, with none being the second result. So I mean that's pretty surprising how it's pretty much in order. So.
If we're doing predictions on how much it's going to be, I'm going to say it's going to be 1995.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So yeah, 2,000 TP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe with some sort of bundle deal of some kind, possibly. But yeah, other than that, it's going to be 1995. It just seems to fit the best for what they would make you pay for.
Especially with it being 50 to whatever the cap ends up being, but not including the 1 to 50. And also at this time, not having a starter zone when this poll happened, that might change by the time our listeners are listening to this. But even that's not for sure, obviously.
Yeah, I'd like to add a caveat to my answer. It's like I'd pay up to $1,000 based on the information we currently have.
$1,000, huh?
Well, those New Zealand dollars aren't worth much, apparently.
It's true.
Oh.
But no, 1,000 turbine points, not dollars. Now I'm lost on what I was going to say.
Sorry.
Yeah, but no. If we get more information, like if they go into a beta test and I get to beta test them and they end up being super duper amazing, yes, I'd be willing to pay more turbine points for them. But based on the information that we have now, 1,000 is where I'll stick.
Well, I presume we're going to find out more about it before.
More compelling information that would make me want to play it.
Right, yeah, and I'm guessing that this producer's letter, or a few weeks after this producer's letter, we're going to start getting some information about Burnings coming through. That's more than just the small amount that we have.
I don't know. I have a feeling we're not going to know too much until we get a lot closer to going up onto Bullroar.
Yeah, but the thing is, assuming it's a month before and it launches in, say, November, then that puts it as October when it comes out.
Yeah.
I'd assume we'd hear more than we know now. They would just throw it onto Bullroar. Here, surprise, it's a Beyonding. You know nothing about it.
Yeah, I mean, usually with expansions...
It's not the first time that's happened.
With a class it has, though. Usually with expansions or things like that, because with this update they kind of did just throw it up, but there isn't that much that's just totally new. Sure, the landscape's new, but as far as actual game content, there's nothing new. If you look back at what they did with mounted combat or some of their new systems, I'd assume that they'd treated a class the same way, because they did back in Mines of Moria. They were given tons of information ahead of time, and with how much Rowan talks to the community, I'm expecting there'll probably be quite a bit of information about him before they launch.
There you go. Rax, what is your pick of the week?
I want to give a quick thank you to Fredalas for giving me this link, because we were both in the LOTRO Reporter chat room earlier this week, and they were talking about the whole raids thing that was a kerfluffle in the community.
That is an awesome word.
So I'm going to try and keep it short because I don't want to get into all that again. I think we're way beyond beating a dead horse at this point, but I did find one particular interesting point in this post. The post is from way back in March 2006, and it's called "Friends Don't Let Friends Tank Balrogs." And this was done by Tim Turner, was the author's name, on Warcry Network. And basically he's taken, I don't know if he did a email interview, but he took a lot of quotes from the developer Orion, who his real name is Alan Mackey. And this is the point that Orion said that I found really interesting in light of the current nitpicking that we're doing over the wording about raids and traditional in-game content, I guess I should say. He said, does this mean that raids will never find their way into LOTRO? Not at all. Raids are truly a different topic requiring their own discussion. So he kind of pushes it away here. Then he says, while there are currently no plans to incorporate raids into LOTRO, and then he goes on to talk about other types of group content. Now, why this is interesting to me is because this means that when LOTRO was launching in 2006, 2007, they did not plan to have raids. In their short-term roadmap, they did not have plans for raids, and yet they came anyway. So I think my point here is that what they're saying right now almost mirrors this exactly. We have no current plans for traditional in-game content. ... That doesn't mean they won't ever do it again. And I think that's what a lot of people are kind of supposing because of these statistics that are being thrown out. But the truth of the matter is, I think they're really adhering to what they told us earlier in the year, where they said, if it makes sense for the story, we will do it. And also, it's not on our current roadmap. It's not on our current 12-month plan. So I think this kind of, a lot of this reaction that's been going on the last week or so is just people finally kind of getting to the point of saying, oh, well, Did they say they're not going to do it? And then they extrapolate that to ever, which I don't think Turbine has really said, but that's my own opinion.
I think
having
much
a lot of
developers
conversations
of
on
any
Twitter about
game
it.
never like to say never. We're never going to do this because it's too binding a statement.
Yeah. One thing real quick before we go into discussion about this that I'd like to add is that Orion actually during the launch event of the video highlights that I posted a little bit ago, a few weeks ago, he actually talks about how they realized that players really want raids. And so he was talking about how they were in discussions about adding raids at the launch event. So, they definitely didn't have plans going into the launch event, but getting feedback and stuff like that right before the launch event, it seems that they kind of made the reversal, like basically when LOTRO was launching, that they were going to someday be including raids into the game. They just, weren't sure when that was going to happen because they were still in early talks about it at that point.
How long after launch did Heligrod come out? Because Heligrod was the first raid.
It wasn't the first update or even the second update. I know that for a fact.
I think it was post Avendum because I think that area hadn't been rolled out until well after it.
Yeah, I don't think it was post all of Avendum, but it was post the first introduction of Avendum. Because Avendum, like Book 10, they were still adding landscape to Avendum. So.
Yeah, but the references to Heligrod start in Book 5.
Right, but, Heligrod is a place that exists. It doesn't necessarily mean that they actually
right, the raid doesn't
go there.
Really incorporate into the epic.
Landscape.
Right, landscape and raid is different, yep.
All right. All right, very well. We will head on then to the question of the week. Etheros.
Okay. I thought about having a more substantial question for this week, but I didn't realize I was actually going to be doing it. So I decided to go with a safer option instead of bringing up the group content thing again. Hooray.
Good job, Thomas.
Yeah, so the question this week is simply about Update 14 in general, since it is right around the corner now. Simple first question is, just in general, what are you looking forward to? It can be specific things or broader, it's new content finally type things. Which I'm sure is a thing. So, first person, Andang, I guess.
You always start with me.
Your name does begin
I think
with
that
me.
It does. I think that the thing I'm most excited about probably is getting into Volume 4. It's a totally new volume. We haven't had a new volume since, free-to-play, or even, I think it was free-to-play, or was it before then even? It's been a long time, whatever it's been, and it's really good to finally be getting into a new volume.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
The landscape, obviously. Just the landscape's cool.
Yeah. Brax.
Well, I was kind of looking forward to seeing the Essence system, but hearing what you guys said about it earlier, I'm going to try and not get my hopes up too much about that yet. Sounds like they're putting it in pretty slowly. However, I am kind of looking forward to seeing those beacons. I'm pretty excited about that part. I've seen some screenshots, but actually being able to walk up to them and see them from a distance, I think that's going to be awesome.
Oh, it is. It very much is.
But don't get your hopes up too high, because then you can only get let down. But they're awesome.
Sithith.
Yeah, mostly landscape stuff. Having a new place to quest in is always nice. Cosmetics. And I actually am kind of excited for the Essence system. I don't mind that it's being very slowly rolled out and that it's kind of hardly there right now. I'm kind of okay with that. I'd rather them do that than go all out and have to do damage control later on. So I'm interested in the Essence system.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else people would like to add that hasn't been mentioned? The silence says no. So next question then. Is there anything coming in this update that you either are not happy about, or maybe there's something you would have liked to have seen in this update that isn't coming? I guess we'll go backwards this time, Pineleaf.
Anything that I'm not happy about, or well, obviously I would have liked a new skirmish, but I wasn't expecting one. So, but as for anything that I was really expecting in this launch, I can't think of anything that I don't want, because, all right, I'm going to give the Essence system a chance because I'm hoping that the Essence system may someday give us a means of getting rid of the LI system. So
Yeah.
Just hope it's better.
We hope.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the problem.
From what I've seen
hope.
of it, it seems to be much less complicated, thankfully.
It is, but I think it's too simple in its current implementation to even know what they're wanting to do with it. So,
yeah.
let alone
I'm
what
okay
it
with
will
simple,
actually
though.
be. So.
Yeah. Drac.
Not that I can think of.
Nothing, huh?
Nope.
Okay then. Comstrike?
Well, I was hoping for a skill that would allow us to get, the entire server a Coke and teach it to sing in perfect harmony, but no, be disappointed on that. Landscape. I'm looking forward to the landscaping. The more of it they could add, I'm just looking forward to seeing it crafted in the usual high quality way I've always enjoyed, and that's usually what I'm up for.
Anything you might not be looking forward to, or that you would have liked to have seen, aside from, buying Zero Coke?
I wish they hadn't bothered with the Essence system unless it is indeed going to be a successor and a usurper to the LI system, because it kind of goes back on what Rowan was saying about wanting to finish systems, not add systems. And I would rather see them finish one or fix one rather than try to add one as a substitute or some kind of overriding capstone to something that hasn't been finished.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anything else people would like to add?
I would not like to see more of these end game regions. I think that they could trade off with every other, basically do one a year instead of doing this twice a year end game thing. I really don't like that much.
I don't like dailies.
Yeah.
In general.
And I really did not like them with Update 13. I think that's maybe the worst implementation of the system, to be quite honest.
Well, especially
I would say
in the middle of
festivals,
nowhere.
actually, that are worse.
Festivals
Because they
are
were actually
worse,
something
but
that were already good, and then they made them bad.
But festivals are something like a whole different thing and don't come with updates. As far as things that come with updates, I feel like that they could just do one of those a year and be done with it, or just get rid of the whole system entirely. I don't know what the numbers are and the number of players that do them, and I'm wondering if they're just doing them because it's there and it's solo content and they're just trying to finish the area and get the gear, or if it's actually something that they legitimately want to do. I'm wondering what the percentage of players actually really do enjoy that, and I know some do, but it's just I don't know if that's anywhere near the majority.
I know this time around they've tried to incorporate more of the fellowship type. I know there's 3-man and 6-man sort of repeatable type things going on in there.
And that's better.
Too much, which is an improvement at least. Because doing any kind of content in this game with friends is more fun than on your own.
Exactly. Even if it's the same content, if it's geared towards 3 people, even if it's still the same bad stuff, at least you can do it with your friends, because then there's opportunity to have fun with other people, which is the whole point of MMOs. Otherwise you just make an RPG for the most part. So.
Okay then. Anyone else try out on this? Okay then. The final question I came up with here is just simply put: do you think that what this update is coming with now is, in general, what the game needs? And do you think it's going to deliver on that? Or do you think that people will end up concluding, in general, that this is kind of maybe lackluster or isn't giving the right type of content? Andang again.
Because it's been 8 months since we've really had any type of major like side quest area of any kind, I think that this is definitely something the community needs. I think the community needs a lot of stuff right now, but I think that this update is definitely going to help out a lot, because it's been a long time since we've had actual like real content that we can sink our teeth into, and this is even like a 5-level update, so that's quite a bit of content. And so yeah, I think that this meets the needs. It definitely doesn't meet the long term of like raids and things like that, but it's been 8 months since we've had any kind of content that's been aside from just the one epic book and the worst implementation of Heightbold yet. And so I think it's definitely something that will at the very least keep LOTRO going where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Brax.
Such a tough question because the game's current needs is very debatable. I think that there's going to be some problems regardless of what they do if the update falls short of an expansion, because people are going to compare this to everything they've gotten previously at this time of year, which is a very large update. I don't know. I think it sounds like they're playing to their strengths. They're doing the landscape. They're doing the epic. These are the things that people always say they love about LOTRO and the reason they play LOTRO. So I think from that standpoint, they are doing the right thing. They're going to continue to get feedback about in-game content as long as epic battles don't live up to the promise. So there's always that. And I do think also that something that was mentioned in one of our comments last week or maybe the week before talked about, once again, going back to the traditional in-game content, that it's not necessarily, the reason that games still develop this content, even though it's played by a very small proportion of the players, is because there's kind of an ecosystem within the game that is supported by all of these different ways of playing. So I think they're going to struggle by deprioritizing some of these things, not only for a small percentage of the community, but for everybody will be affected in some way. Even the people that don't fit into that 10% or that 4% or whatever that percentage is are going to feel the deprioritization of traditional in-game content. So that's going to be something that they're going to have to live with as these things come out. So, I mean, I guess as we say, will it deliver? I think in some ways it will deliver very well. And I think there are other ways that it's going to fall short, and the players are going to let them know that it falls short.
Yeah, I would real quick just like to say that when you're talking about how there's the ecosystem, MMOs are played with friends, and that's a large portion of the community. A lot of people, there's a lot more solo players in LOTRO than other MMOs, but it's still stuff you play with your friends, with your kinship and things like that. And so even if your kinship is not that big of a raiding kin, but like the head of the kinship's a raider and stuff like that, that can really affect your kinship and things like that. And when my first kinship failed, I thought about just leaving LOTRO entirely. And so I think, while it might not directly affect a large portion of the player base, raiding still does affect a lot of players because they're friends with raiders and things like that. So even if the raiders only make up 4%, their entire friend network makes up a lot larger percent. And so it's still not near the majority, I don't think, in LOTRO at least. But I think that it's still a lot more than maybe Turbine's factoring into it. But as far as profitability, yeah, it's probably just 4%.
To be honest, I've always been kind of skeptical of the belief that raiders are kind of having this impact to the game community as a whole. I'm sure there is some, like any kind of aspect of the play base does. I just kind of get the sense that, especially on the forums, they seem to have a belief that they are more important to the game's survival than they really are.
I definitely agree with that, but if you've been supporting a system, regardless of what it is, for, however many years LOTRO's been supporting it, and then all of a sudden decide to go away from it for it's been about 2 years now, if you don't count epic battles, then, that's definitely something that's a big switch, especially when they've had this, content drought for 8 months.
Oh, sure, I can understand that. I think what I'm kind of saying is that, like, at least, again, from what I've read on the forums, which, again, I probably shouldn't do as much, is that, like, I've even seen people outright state that without them, the game would collapse. Like, it's
and
pretty much
that's something I disagree with. Yeah, that's something I definitely disagree with, but I think that it could affect, assuming that them focusing on the solo play and, the story and things like that doesn't add in extra players or even, sustain the players that they might lose from getting rid of rating. It will affect their profit margins and things like that. But, it might outweigh the amount that they would lose. But I think that honestly, just because MMOs are so weird and complex and there's so much of a network, it's very hard to tell what will make the players leave for sure. And that's why so many MMOs shut down, because it's really expensive and a lot of them don't know what their players are really there for, or even they think that something's insignificant and they change it, and then that causes the entire MMO to fail. There's a ton of MMOs that have had that happen, where they change just a few things and then they realize that that's what their players liked most about it, or even a small majority of their players like most about it, and that causes the collapse. And then there's other MMOs where they're still going after a really, really long time, and it's, they kind of still don't understand why they're still going, but there's still players that are paying for it and stuff like that. So MMOs are so weird that it's just very hard to tell what the final straw will be that causes them to shut down.
I think kind of what it comes down to for Turbine is whether continuing to make these big instance clusters and keeping raiders happy is worth the kind of, because obviously now they don't seem to have as many resources as they used to, is whether they're able to keep that going without it impacting the solo, or more, I don't want to say the word casual, but I'm going to say the word casual game. Whether impacting that is worth it. I suppose it's which way it can kind of go in terms of it being financially profitable.
And they're technically, not, like, I don't know if their resources are necessarily less, it's just that they're adding in epic battles to the list of things that they're doing, and that takes a lot of time, I'm sure, because, it's a totally new system that I don't think any MMO has anything close to. I can't think of any MMO that has that large of a scale of, number of enemies on screen and things like that. And so I'm sure that just the technology of trying to display more and more enemies, because, they're trying to get up to the huge Battle of Minas Tirith, just trying to just display more and more enemies, I'm sure is costing them a ton of development costs and, employee time and all that stuff. So
yeah, I think it's
really
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
I was just going to say,
Calm strike, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's the origin of Rowan's insistence that they need to finish systems rather than to add systems. I think the essence is probably on the docket well before he even took back over. But with big battles, I think it's a doubly critical thing, exactly because we are basically from here on out only going to places where you have big or epic battles. And if they do not get this system right and fix it, and most people generally seem to feel that the system is flawed or just is not up to its full potential, at least not to where it needs to be for the long term. If they don't get it fixed between now and the middle of next year, they're going to be sitting on real estate where they can do nothing but big battles, not traditional raids, but big battles, and have a system that's still so rejected by the raiders and by a lot of casual people that they're going to be in trouble. So yeah, I think maybe that's probably why the raids are off the table and are going to be for a couple of years, because they've got to spend the time to make this right. prove it's right and make sure the community understands it really is right and has been fixed, or they're going to lose all credibility, and they're not going to have the time or anyone around to care if they do raids in 2 years or not.
Yeah, the question really is, though, if they've already lost that credibility or not with the system. And, I mean, there's a large majority, well, maybe not a majority, but there's a large amount of players, at least on the forums, that seem to just not like them at all. I know just pulling our podcast, you know, it's really just Atheros and maybe one other person that really likes the system, but everyone else is just either okay with them or really doesn't like them. And so, you know, I don't know if they've already lost people. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with in Update 15 or whenever that next epic battle comes out.
That'll be a good way of seeing how much progress they've made towards making and addressing the player concerns that have been made.
Yeah, I think that is really going to be their last kind of chance with epic battles, because they spent kind of like 5 months, you know, trying to make them better and fix them, and you know they're still doing things to try to improve them even now. Just the like original ones that they came out with in November, so, you know, 8 months ago. They're still doing things that are just trying to like back fix those. Plus they're building new ones and trying to figure out how to do, you know, Minas Tirith just as a city, let alone Minas Tirith as an epic battle, and you know. All that stuff, it has to be costing them a ton of money because it's just stuff that really is in uncharted territory. No other MMO that I know of has tried to do things on that kind of a scale before. And it's going to get really, really expensive for them, and it'll be interesting to see where things go.
All right. Anything else on the question of the week before we go on?
I don't think so.
Very well. Then one amendment to something that was discussed earlier. I checked the patch notes from the update in June 12, 2007, and it notes that Heligrod and Ivenden were added in the same update.
Okay. You said June 12, 2007, so that was just 2 months after?
Yeah. That was Book 9, the first update after the release.
Okay, that's pretty quick after, considering that they weren't even sure they were going to do them leading into release.
Right, and that was a 24-player instance also, since the original Heligrod was all 24.
Wasn't the housing system also kind of a last-minute, let's just throw it in type of thing?
It was, but they also
but that's even later.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but they also had an obnoxiously large team at that point because, you know, they were... And, and honestly, I think LOTRO probably still has a really large team. It's just that now they're working on, and have been working on, you know, all these new systems and things like that. Whereas before, you know, they had instances already. They just had to make it into a raid with 24 players. And honestly, the other 3 wings of Heligrod are pretty long, but the final boss fight isn't that long of a fight.
No,
really.
It wasn't really.
Mm-hmm. So I can see how that could have come out quickly. And I'm wondering, you know, a lot of players are asking for like these long like raids like what we got with Tower of Orthanc, but I think realistically if they do want something, they'll have to start asking for something a little bit simpler and then proving to Turbine that yes, we will pay for this content, and then you can get those bigger raid clusters and things like that, maybe, if everything goes right.
All right, very well. As for donations, we have a donation from Scott for $10 or more to LOTRO Players. If you also would like to support LOTRO Players, you can go to the donations page where you can help support the podcast on LOTRO Players and also help support the site. We have $5 and $10 mentions where you can donate and get a mention on one or all of our active podcasts for an episode, depending on the amount. For $5, you will get a mention on the podcast of your choice. For $10 or more, you will get a mention on all of our active podcasts. As for feedback, we don't have any reviews this week, but we'd love to receive some, and you can leave them in the feedback section of iTunes. Our only 2 featured comments we mentioned earlier back when we were talking about the teasers, and we did not receive.
I would like to point out real quick that we did get another rating on iTunes. We got another 5-star rating, but there was no review attached to it. But thank you whoever left the 5-star rating. That really helped out.
All right. No emails this week, but if you can leave us an email by contacting us at lotraplayers.mymiddleearth@gmail.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter, lotraplayers @lotraplayers, Andang @pvmp_Andang, Braxwolf @Braxwolf, Sithrith @Sithrith, Draculetta @Draculetta_72, Etheros @Etheros, Lilicate @LilicateBuggins, Mystery @MysteryXOX, and Pineleaf @Pineleaf Needles. And, well, normally we will be able to join us live, but we are currently having technical difficulties that are making it impossible to do so. But when we get back to it, we'll be live on Saturdays at 5 p.m. server time and at 8:30 p.m. Saturday for the LOTRO Players News. And you can join us.
We will be trying again next week, but YouTube recently changed. You noticed not only graphically did they change things, but apparently they also changed things for streamers and things like that. So right now, for whatever reason, we're just having issues streaming to YouTube. So thanks, YouTube, for messing up stuff.
Very well. Yes, so therefore, you'll most likely, until we get these issues resolved, we'll have to see the shows when they go up on the site on Monday and Tuesday. And you can join us. Well, okay, you can't go to lotraplayers.com, that's live now, but when we are back live, you'll be able to do so.
One day, eventually, you'll be able to join us live.
Yes.
We hope, maybe.
Right. Thank you for watching, and that's all for tonight. So until next time, this is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.